Welcome to The Real Pro-Choice, where you will hear stories of miraculous healings and restorations. A doctor's diagnosis doesn't mean you have to choose the easy way out. It just means fighting for the life of your child is worth the fight.
The choices we make affect our lives. Sometimes our choices not only affect our own lives, but everyone connected to us. Maybe even those we're not aware of. God says, choose life, so that you and your descendants may live. Join Donna Grisham and her guests as they share the choices they've made and how Jesus has set them free. Next on The Real Pro-Choice.
Welcome to the show today. I'm so happy to have Lyn and Katie Kost with me today. Welcome, Lyn and Katie.
Hi.
Thank you
for having us.
Much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, let's just dive right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I teach high school Spanish at a small private school in Fort Mill, and take care of our 4 babies and our 3 lizards in our home in South Carolina.
Lizards.
Yeah, 4 babies, 3 lizards.
Yeah.
Yep. And I work at a grocery store nearby, and I also work full-time for a ministry.
Okay. Well, in 2006, you two met and got married. Start from there and tell us your story.
Well, I was in a very abusive home, and not a lot of people knew. We jumped around a lot, and when we did form relationships, it was just a big front. And I was looking for a rescuer and a way out. And strangely enough, I met Lyn, and I was like, this is not my rescuer, this is not my way out, bye. And he just kept being so gentle, and he had that vision that I was his wife, and never once shared that with me. He never once was like, oh, you're my wife, until way after I was like, I think I want to marry you. But he has that rock solid faith. Mm-hmm. And I tend to be the very practical one. I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. We gotta, make sure. But it was that combination, when I finally said, I feel like the Lord is saying I'm supposed to marry you or something, and I'm really feeling these feelings for you all of a sudden. And he was like, oh, welcome aboard. I've been here for a while.
So you married in 2006, yes. And right from the start, you two knew that y'all were to have children. You just knew, something in your heart just told you you're to have children.
Yeah.
Well, I always wanted children from when I was little. My sister was 8 years younger than me. It always felt like my child. She didn't feel like a little sister. She felt like my child, and I just knew I'd always kind of been that way.
And I felt very much not the same with her sister, but just that I always needed, had something in me that knew that there were supposed to be children in my life.
Yeah. Okay. So you end up, you start trying to have children, and that there's during that time there's a lot of loss. I mean, loss and disappointment happening. Tell us the story of that.
So I think somewhere I figured we'd wait about 6 months and then start trying, but we somewhere within the first 3 months, I remember I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm pregnant, and very excited, and I took a test, and it was so light and not quite there, and I wasn't sure, and went to my first appointment, and they said they couldn't find anything. They did the blood test, and they said that my hormones had come up but were now coming back down. So it looked like I had what they call a chemical pregnancy, is just your hormones go up, but the pregnancy isn't viable, so it doesn't even really implant, or whatever it is. And so they said, not to worry, you're young, just keep waiting. And I think we went through at least 2 miscarriages where there was actual babies that, and they were small, It was very early, and we went through about 6 chemical pregnancies in 4 years.
Yeah.
And let's just talk on this. How did you cope with? I mean, you had so much loss. The chemical pregnancies, the miscarriages. How did you? Because I know in the back of your mind y'all struggled with a lot of things during that time.
Yeah, I'll say it was difficult. Coming from a man's perspective, it's not easy to imagine a pregnancy. We don't have the feelings for the most part. We don't have the body changes, the mood changes. We just are there hoping to be a help, to support, and it doesn't feel natural in a way to go through a loss and to go through so many so quickly.
So did you start, when in saying that, did you as a man, because we talk about the women, and women do struggle with miscarriages, and even,
And it's such a taboo thing, like people say don't share until you're at a certain point but I found that sharing provided support.
Exactly.
And kept me from really being so lonely and wondering why growing up the way I did and now having my prince and my happy ending, why wasn't it a happy ending?
Right. And I want to bring something out, with this show. I had an abortion. Let me just say, abortion and miscarriage are 2 different things. An abortion is from a choice that was made. A miscarriage is you had no choice. There was not, you were not, so I do want to make that clear in this show because, but I also want to, talk about the man's perspective as what you felt, how the emotions and you felt, but yet how did you walk through that? Or what did you do?
A lot of times I kind of waited for her lead because I didn't know how she was feeling. And I've found out since then that communication is vital. It's the most important thing, I think, is not to just guess or assume that you know what they're going through. Well, you can just buck through it or whatever. You need to give her space. You need to understand where she is.
So the woman isn't the only one that goes through this. The man goes through it,
and it's a different
going through
feeling,
it together.
Yeah.
Not separately. Not you were going to.
Yeah, I think Lyn had just such an amazing faith. It was like he knew I was hurting. He would hold me. He would express his disappointment as well, so it wasn't just me.
Right.
But he was reserved in a sense that it was like, I don't want to add to her suffering by putting my own disappointment on top of her. But I think there was definitely, because I watched him get excited for the first couple and then being like, okay. But his faith, that man was like, I know we're going to have kids and I don't know how they're going to come, but we're going to have them.
Even after as many losses as you had, you still had the faith. You still, there was nothing impossible. God was going to see you through.
And we weren't sure how that was going to happen.
Exactly. So we're going to fast forward 2010. 2010, Katie, you were diagnosed with diabetes, but not only were you diagnosed with diabetes, there was something else that you were diagnosed with.
Yes, the doctors told me that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is basically tumors that form on the ovaries, and then when an egg tries to rupture out, it becomes destroyed or can't be released because of the tumor.
So in the medical perspective of that, would you be able to carry a baby?
They said basically because of the combination of the diabetes, my hormones being completely flipped, and if they tried to work with them, it would affect my blood sugars, and with the polycystic ovarian syndrome, never being sure when an egg was actually viable, that without assistance, we would not become pregnant at all.
Okay, we're going to take a break. I'll be right back with my guests, Lyn and Katie Kost, and their story.
God values all life, even from conception. Donna Grisham and the vision of her ministry, Journeys of Choice, is to empower women through counseling, parenting classes, and by providing alternate options to choose life for themselves and their unborn child. With prayer and dependence on God, Journeys of Choice is committed to saving the lives of unborn children, while at the same time offering courage, assistance, and healing. For more information, visit journeysofchoice.org.
Welcome back. I'm here with Lyn and Katie Kost, and they're telling us a little bit about their story. Katie, the last segment, you had just been diagnosed with diabetes and
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
thank you.
No, it's okay.
I'm like, I can't-
PCOS. That is when you have multiple either cysts or beginnings of cysts, or even sometimes tumors on the ovary, covering the areas where the egg would normally come out from.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I had the diabetes, and this was all based on, so my type of diabetes, I was producing insulin, but my body, because of its hormone imbalance, was not accepting the insulin I produced.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like some diabetes, like my husband's, is where the pancreas is failing. But because of that, we had tried hormone replacements, and I just got so sick, and my moods were all over the place. And then we tried fertility drugs, and ended up in the hospital because it created more cysts, and they all exploded at once. And we had gone to a fertility clinic and had begun the first steps, but it was very daunting financially, just were not sure what the next steps were.
Mm-hmm.
And
what did you decide? In the end, what was the decision?
He went to go hang out with our pastor, and our pastor said, Katie needs a baby. And he said, and you really need to look at maybe adopting.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else this very same day came up to me and said, you should think about adopting. And
so
I thought,
started. So what? Tell the story about
So right after
adoption.
right before they had said that, maybe 3 days before, I was not signed up with any adoption agencies. I forget what they are, but basically the woman that helps the lawyers and puts together the family.
social worker.
Kind of.
What?
Do you remember what?
I don't remember what she.
Anyway,
called,
she kind of coordinates.
Mm-hmm.
The coordinator for an adoption agency called me because we had a mutual friend, and she said, there's a baby up for adoption, but it's a very short window that this baby will come. Would you be interested? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I went to him, and he was like, no. And then those friends came and said that, and we had not shared with anybody. So the pastor came and a friend came, and they were like, you should adopt. So we
said yes.
Yeah, we contacted the agency, and we had previously done foster to adopt program through South Carolina so that we could be certified foster parents, and they accepted that certification, so we didn't have to go through a lot of big bells and whistles.
Right.
And everything just started falling into place. We met the birth mother. She loved us. We really liked her. And so we went from, we are never going to have babies, to there's a baby on the way in 10 days. Mm-hmm. And she came about 11 to 12 days after. And oh my goodness.
And so you were going to adopt. You were in the process.
We were in
of adopting a little girl. She's in your home. Mm-hmm. You're getting used to this little girl being with you. You're getting used to her being your little girl. Yeah. Tell us what happened.
So you got to hold her at minute 1.
Yeah.
Right, minute 1 out, he held her.
I held her.
We spent the days at the hospital with her. We had her in our home, like you said. And for South Carolina, you have to go through a 30-day period without anybody contesting your adoption, and then you're allowed to have your sign, they sign, and it's your baby.
On the last day.
Day 29, Bio Dad went down to the courthouse and said, and put in a motion to contest our adoption. Uh-huh. But he didn't want custody of her. He wanted custody to be replaced with the mother. And the mother wanted nothing more. And we started going through court cases and so many different legal things that have to be decided. And the baby was back and forth, 3 days at the dad's house, 2 days at our house, back
So
and
how
forth.
long was the baby in your home with you?
She was with us for 6 months.
6 months, okay. So y'all had her for 6 months, and then the father comes back, he decides he wants her.
We had her
And
for
then-
30 days. He came back. He decided he wanted her, and then we spent the next 4 or 5 months in
Okay.
court cases
court.
to decide if he had the right.
Okay.
Because he hadn't done certain things to gain. Women have the parental right
Right.
based on carrying.
Yes.
Fathers are not automatically granted parental right if the parents are not together and certain things aren't met.
Right. Okay. Now let's get to the place where the judge, you've been through the court case and
Yeah.
everything, and it's all, and there's the day in court that was so devastating. Tell us that.
So I had, we had found out just prior to that we were pregnant again, and the day
before, I think.
court, and I was terrified, and I didn't want to be pregnant because of what had happened, and so I
Right.
was like, well, I just know this is going to pass, and I remember looking at our baby girl, whom we had named Madeline. I looked at Madeline, and I just knew she was always going to be mine, but we weren't going to be able to keep her. I don't know how I knew, but I knew, and I thought, okay, this is real parenting. You hold on to them, you equip them with everything you need, and when God says it's time for them to go, whether because they're 18 or because He's called them out, or because they passed, or whatever it is, you open up your hands and you let them go. And so I went into the court case thinking, that's just a test from God. He's not really going to take her. He was just
Right.
testing me.
Yeah.
And there had been a previous court case that had been decided in the favor of the adoptive parents, so we had precedent on our side, and our team was rejoicing. And less than 24 hours after we were in court, the judge handed down his decision and said that the father had the right to contest, and that we would have to pay his court fees, the mother's court fees, and our own, and some reparation. And so they said, instead of paying that, you can give custody. And we
Okay.
did.
So, you go
Sorry.
through all that. Y'all, the father gets the little girl. Y'all are devastated. You fast forward and you're pregnant. You're excited. You go to a doctor, Katie, and the doctor, he's not very nice from what I've read in your story you sent me. But he fairly cruel, tell us at that point what, you were having a sonogram, I think a sonogram, and tell us exactly, go back to that place and tell us that story.
So the day that Madeline's father picked her up, it was Father's Day, and I could not go back into the house, so we went on a trip, and we went away for a week, just traveling the Blue Mountains and getting together and just being in love or whatever, and starting to rejoice in this new baby. And the first day back, he said, I've been gone so long, I'm gonna go to work. You go to your sonogram. And I went, and the doctor came in with a face like a gravestone, and he wouldn't speak to me, but he said, do you wanna have anybody here for support? And I said, well, what's wrong? And again, he wouldn't tell me, and then he left the room and he came back, and he said, there's too much water on her neural tube. It's thickened almost to the point of where she would die from this. There's water in her heart. Her legs are twisted. There's lesions on her brain. The baby more than likely has trisomy 18,
Right.
Down syndrome, and something wrong with her heart. It's not worth saving this baby.
So
And
what was his suggestion? What did he say?
he told me that I needed to terminate the pregnancy for the better, because it would be unfair to bring a baby in just to die, that it would be cruel to my emotions, that it would be cruel on the system, because if she did live for any matter of time, which was not likely. She would need extensive medical care. It would be very expensive. Was I willing to walk through that when I could just get pregnant again?
Okay, you were at the doctor's office by yourself.
Yes.
You call your husband,
Yes.
and what, after you hear what's going on, and she tells you that the doctor said, you know, he said he wants her to abort the baby, what was your...
My immediate reaction was, God, I don't think we can do this. I believe I was just broken at that point, broken before the Lord, and I said, "There's, you know, I believe like we protected this pregnancy during that court case, because I was very aware of how fragile her body was during that pregnancy time,
yeah.
and I didn't want us to go through another loss, and definitely not that quick.
Right.
And I said, you know, you got to give me something, because I want to see this through.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Lyn and Katie Kost's story coming up next.
I invite you to visit journeysofchoice.org and get this book. You may be in a situation where you are at a crossroads between the choice of life and the choice of death. Life may have stopped for you, and you are fearful of what your future holds. Abortion, rape, adoption, and more are covered in Donna Grisham's book, Journeys of Choice. Donna shares her own story, along with 14 additional inspiring testimonies from both men and women who were at a crossroads. Each one shares the choices they made and how those choices affected their lives and the lives of others. Their words offer wisdom for making godly choices in the midst of trauma and crisis, and bring hope, healing, and supernatural redemption to anyone with a broken past. As you read these pages, you will see for yourself the truth behind choice and the effects of the choices we make. See how God wants to intervene in your situation and change the course of your life forever. Find hope and healing for those who have been faced with an unplanned pregnancy. Know that God has not left you and wants to bring hope to your hopelessness. Every testimony in this book, Journeys of Choice, will bring healing and hope to the brokenhearted, revealing what was meant for evil and harm, and show you how God can turn it around for good and blessings. This heartfelt book will inspire, motivate, encourage, and assist you on the road to recovery that will bring a wellspring of hope into your life and others. Get your copy today.
Welcome back. I'm here with Lyn and Katie Kost. Lyn, you in the last segment we found out that Katie, you were pregnant. You were told, the doctor told you to abort because of medical conditions, some medical conditions that, you know, a long list of things that could be wrong with your daughter. Now, you notice I said that could be.
Yeah.
So the doctor was he adamant that these things were going to be wrong, or that he was just basically, was he guessing?
He saw markers.
Okay.
He could see the neural tube. He could see the fluid, which indicated something wrong with the heart rate. He could see the lesions on the brain. He said he saw them.
Okay.
That led him to then speculate as to what other issues would come from there. And as Lyn said, he told the Lord, I'm broken, give me something, and God gave him your three things.
Yeah.
What did God give you?
He showed me the tabernacle with the three doorways, the way, the truth, and the life. Mm-hmm. He said, pray this over Katie, over the pregnancy. Perfect healing for where they're at now. Perfect health for where she's going to be, and perfect life for where she will be.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
And so every night I prayed, perfect healing, perfect health, perfect life.
And the doctor kept pushing, and every time he would do another test, we would come out with a better ratio. Mm-hmm. One in 500, and then finally 1 in 10,000. And that meant there was no problem. So we delivered a very healthy, lively Olivia.
Yes.
Olivia. And how old is Olivia today?
Olivia is now 10. Right when she was about 7, we received the diagnosis that she had autism. And we had already decided this was the baby for us.
Right, but I want to go back to, that's okay, that's good. But I want to go back to, you know, your diagnosis. You were diagnosed, you weren't going to, all this stuff. You deliver a healthy baby.
Yes.
He's prayed these prayers over you, perfect healing, perfect health, perfect prayer. Perfect life, you know, and you deliver a healthy baby, not diagnosed with what the doctors had said. That, to me, would you not say that was a miracle in itself?
Yes, it was a huge miracle when she came, and you know, we definitely, the diagnosis later, it was never a downward thing for us. It was like, this is the baby God said we were going to have, and He's going to give us all the tools. And she has just flourished. Like, even with, you know, them saying, well, there's autism. First of all, we had her, and we got pregnant 5 months later with Ava. We had Ava, we got pregnant 5 months later with Sophie. So, like, the whole fertility thing became not a problem.
Your whole story is a story of miracles, one right after the other.
Yes.
God just showing up and performing miracles in your lives.
Yes.
You know, and even with let's go back to the diagnosis with Olivia.
Yeah.
You know, even with the diagnosis with autism, you know, what did God show y'all concerning that?
He always knew Olivia from the moment she was in there. This was not a surprise to him.
No.
And I stumbled a little bit when I was like, we already chose to have that baby. But what I meant was we chose to keep this child.
Right.
We knew God had said
life.
she was meant to be. And therefore, we knew that this was not going to be a problem. And I'd have to say, like, we have learned so much about being, you know, whole and healthy ourselves on you know, spiritually and mentally, and working with Olivia and guiding her through this. It's just been a continual every day. Like, we are going to just keep going.
I want to shift gears for a minute.
Yeah.
I want one of you to look at the camera, look at your camera, and I want you to talk to the person out there that might be in the same place that you two were in.
I would say that pro-life is not just one choice, it's a continuation of choices. Every day, and sometimes it's moment by moment, you need to choose life and continue to choose life, because it's an uphill battle. And if anybody tells you it isn't, they're not aware of the full situation.
Well, thank you, Lyn and Katie, for joining me today. And thank you for joining us today. Visit my website, journeysofchoice.org. I would love to hear from you. See you next week on The Real Pro Choice.